communication in air. So we actually had a lot of people requesting for stylistic devices in bridges without rivers. So I'm just going to take a short while to give you what you asked for, because they say if they ask, give them, because if you don't do so, then why are you there? So you are a very special audience, the ones who actually observe and follow the content for JSS. I'm very grateful, and without you, I wouldn't actually be selling this content. So you are welcome on board, and please follow so that you can get the gist of what the discussion is all about. Some of you request for the notes. And of course, I told you there is a book available having discussed all the JSS texts, and you can actually order for it, you will get it. So thank you for subscribing to the channel and coming up every time to follow on what I do. Sometimes I get late into responding to your requests, but no worries. Once I see that, I'll respond. Yeah, so our first stylistic device is dialogue. So we actually see on page 11, there is a discussion, or rather a conversation. Chung Ling is holding a conversation with Mugeni, asking about the possibility of getting 20 rhino horns. And even though these animals are endangered and guarded, we see Mugeni assuring him that the country has all possibilities. So everything is possible. What do you think about this? Now, the second conversation you will find is page 14. Chung Ling addresses Mugeni. That is the time he shows up with the police in the park, and Mugeni starts explaining that he will deliver the goods. Unfortunately, he doesn't know that Chung Ling had just set a trap and is now arrested. There is another discussion, or rather dialogue, that we get Lengai telling Mugeni how bad killing animals are, and urges that they stop whatever they are doing, the poaching activity. However, Mugeni is against this and insists that they should shoot, as he will pay him handsomely. So I hope you've seen those dialogues, 3 of them, but we have much more if you get deep into the text. The second style is simile. I hope all of you know simile when we are comparing two things using the word like or as. Now in this text, the story, I found 2 examples of similes. The first on page 1, and that was like an enraged hissing snake. Yeah, so the focus was actually to show how Mugeni was annoyed when Lengai is delaying to shoot the buffaloes. Now we get to page 5 and we see another simile. Shooting 10 rhinos would be like killing the goose that laid the golden egg. Now this is proving how important the rhinos were. Remember, they were extinct, or rather they were almost being extinct as a result of continuous poaching activities. Now the third style that we'll meet here is metaphor, the use of metaphor. Of course, we have more examples than simile. So when you get to page 3, we have 2 metaphors. The first is a walking gold mine. What is this walking gold mine? It's the rhino. Of course, how many of you have seen rhinos? I doubt if you have, and if you have seen, there are very few. Then page 3 again had prized jewel. Again, that is a rhino. It's quite prized because many poachers look for it as a result of the horns, which sell at a high bid. Looking at page 2, you will find this metaphor. Horns are a curse that the deity places on rhino. So we are looking at the horns and we are saying because people go for horns and that's why they kill the rhinos, it is a curse, right? Page 5, that would be a blood bath. You know, killing a lot of rhinos, about 10, is actually a bloodbath. You know, rhinos bleed a lot when they're killed. So it could be a whole pool of blood spreading in the park. Page 6, you know, Mugeni compares to what Lengai is saying and calls it a sermon. Sermons are only done in church. But here, Lengai is actually bored with whatever he's being told. So he doesn't want to listen to. No wonder he calls it a sermon. The next stylistic device is idiom. So we have idiomatic expressions. I hope you've encountered several. So here, of course, you get an idiom, one that could cause the proverbial crocodile to shed genuine tears. Do you know what that means? That means that, you know, a situation that was quite disheartening. So check on page 6 for the exact words. Again, page 6 has another idiomatic expression. The poaching pinch had begun to bite deep at that point. Now, what is the author meaning here? That poaching had begun to haunt or rather affect the country, right? We have page 7, D-Day. When somebody talks of a D-Day, what is it? Yeah, it's like the 11th hour, the final, time that you can be caught pants down. I'm using idioms all through, but at least I hope you understand what I'm talking about here. Page 6, there is red flags. When you talk of red flags, is that warning. Yeah, the warning that can come in form of a poster, maybe a message, urgency, and all forms. The next style I'll talk about is flashback. When you look at page 8, you meet a flashback whereby Lengai is thinking about the day he and Johnny killed a rhino, and that rhino was almost calving. Now Johnny had to pull the calf out of the canal and checked whether that calf had a horn. And the fluid really splashed all over his face, and he walked the whole night with the stench, right? So it becomes haunting to him. We also have another flashback when Lengai is recalling how he had stayed 2 days without a meal before Mugeni came to him and asked him, to go and poach rhinos at 50,000 shilling each. We have another style, stream of conscience. It's not a very common style. This style is whereby somebody, it's like when you're reading a text, you get the inner voices coming out. What is this person thinking? Yeah, so the writer brings them out to just actually show the guilt and all that, or the haunting aspect. So when you look at page 2 of the text, what do you see? Lengai's inner voice asks him what would happen if he failed to complete the shooting task. Yeah? Again, page 11, Lengai's inside disagreed with what he was about to do. And we can actually see the words, do you have to do it? How many times have you tried to steal your mother's food and something tells you don't do it? The other one tells you do it. Maybe you are there, you want to, get to your friend's place and your mother doesn't like it and you say, I shouldn't do it, and the other voice tells you do it. Yeah, the next style is irony. Of course, we see irony in this book. It's ironical for Chung Ling to demand for rhino horns, then comes to arrest Lengai. Of course, this is unexpected. It's also ironical for Lengai to have fought against poaching for so long, then he finally joins it fully. Yeah? It's also ironical that guides who are assigned to guard the animals in the park are the ones who are hunting, or rather leading poachers to the right direction where these animals are. Next style is onomatopoeia. I hope you know onomatopoeia. I've been actually presenting several videos and showing you what it is. Now in the text we have several of them. Page 1 we have the word mattered. Page 10, quivering. Page 1 again, rang. Page 2, shooting. Page 3, chuckled. Page 3, mumbled. And page 4, screaming. The next style I'll talk about is direct address. I think I explained clearly the difference between direct address and dialogue. Direct address, somebody just talks to you and you don't respond. So we see that on page 1 and 2. Mugeni is addressing Lengai inside. Quickly shoots rhinos and wonders why he's delaying. He's telling him to quickly shoot the rhino. Now, ellipsis is another style. Ellipsis, I told you, is where you're reading and you realize that there are dots, 3 dots, or sometimes a dash. Yeah? Kind of hyphen. So in the text, page 11, this is where we see Mugeni stammering while responding to Chung, and he's saying, Sir, I will bring the goods. Yeah? So ellipsis is used when somebody is stammering or they can't finish the conversation. Actually, because they are caught pants down on its detail for them. So the other style is vivid description. I think this is very clear. And of course, in the text, Mugeni's wide eyes were fixed on a target which was about 50 or 60 meters away. Chung Ling, turning his focus to his guide, who was wearing a pair of dark blue jeans and an orange t-shirt. He could not hide his excitement. His small slanting eyes narrowed with ecstasy as he chuckled. Check that on page 3 and you'll actually see the evidence. The second last style is rhetorical questions, and I think I've told you so many times about rhetorical questions. Those questions we don't have to answer because somebody's just confirming, you know, they are like trying to echo their thoughts. Sometimes they are asking, obviously, just to maintain the conversation, but there's nothing you can do about it. So in this story, page 2, Mugeni asks, "What is it, Lengai? Why are you delaying to shoot the bloated creature?" It's just a force making Lengai to act. The other example is Chungling asks Mugeni, "You thought you were clever, didn't you?" Remember, Chungling has already met them pants down, having almost shot a buffalo, a rhino, that is. Yeah, so that is page 11. The last style is contrast, and I told you contrast comes in various forms, but for you, I'll just make it simple, whereby we are having a comparison of one thing to the other. Now in page 2, we've been, exposed to killing and compassion. Lengai is divided between killing of the rhinos and compassion towards animals, and that is why we are seeing him hesitating to shoot. But for a long time, he had actually been caring about these rhinos until he was sacked after he's fixed. And then he goes on the killing aspect. So that contrast, you can actually see it clearly in the text. Page 2, we see the short, thick man. Mugeni is contrasted with Lengai, yeah? Lengai is tall, slender, while Mugeni is short, thick. Page 3 and 11, we actually see Chungling, who wanted the horns and was actually pressing Mugeni to go ahead and look for the 10 rhinos, compared to that Chungling who comes to arrest Mugeni and Lengai, and he's very firm by the time he meets them. So there is an activity for you. I'll leave you to handle this. It's a contextualized kind of question. Remember, that's what JS recommends when you are actually looking forward to the KPSEA exams. That's what you expect. So we have this question, and you can listen keenly. The two turned to look at the television. A flashlight signaled the location of the rhino's new home. There was also a film on the numbers, both male and female, as counted from the air. This information was provided to whet the appetites of tourists, whose primary goals were to see and film the animals. The Tourism Service Board provided the images and information. They had no idea that they were also providing poachers with hints on where to satisfy their voracious appetites for game trophies. If they had been aware, they would have provided the information in a different manner. But who knows? Maybe they knew. Maybe they had a two-dimensional stake, like the warders. Okay, so question 1. Who are the two mentioned in the passage? Who are the two mentioned in the passage? 2 marks. Question 2. Where were they watching the television from? Where were they watching the television from? 1 mark. Question 3. What had they talked about? What had they talked about? 2 marks. Question 4. What two themes have been shown in the passage? What two themes have been shown in the passage? That is 2 marks. And lastly, identify and explain any style used in the above passage, 2 marks. So, I'll actually enlighten you on one thing. There are so many papers being sold, but I've been trying to check online and sometimes even buy some of them. Now, you actually have to be keen as a parent or a teacher, because on the section of literature, some people are lying, placing there a title of a book like Strange Happenings, the the bridges without rivers, or any other story, and that is in Kiswahili and English. But they don't have an idea about the book, so they just place their random passage and then lie to you as a parent that this is an actual book. So this will mess your students. So just be keen as you buy the papers, as you check online questions, make sure that the section for literature is using the actual information from the text. If you are not exposed to knowledge about this text, you can acquire somebody to help you understand whether that passage is related to the text, because this is how they'll be setting the exams. And if your child will be exposed to wrong questions, will be used to a wrong way, and it will end up messing their future. So thank you for watching, and I think If you have any question about the exams and what have you, especially English and Kiswahili for JS, let's go, because the guides are there and everything. Some questions, we are working on an encyclopedia currently because of course you are the ones who suggested that and you asked that we do it, and we will be almost coming out with it very soon. It will be a very voluminous book, yeah, covering all the subjects and questions answers. Thank you. Stay put. Bye bye for now.